The aroma of roasted chicken filled our home, mingling with the scent of fresh herbs and a hint of lemon. I stood in the kitchen, glancing at the clock as I arranged the final touches on the dining table. My hands moved deftly, setting out plates adorned with delicate floral patterns that had been passed down through generations. Tonight was important. It was the first family dinner with my husband's brother, Jake, since he returned to town after years away. As I prepared, I felt a flutter of excitement mixed with anxiety. This dinner was an opportunity to impress my in-laws and show them that I could still create a warm and inviting atmosphere despite the years passing. The town had recently celebrated its annual harvest festival, and I wanted to reflect that cozy spirit in our home. The vibrant colors of autumn leaves outside seemed to seep into the very fabric of our lives, reminding me of simpler times. When my husband, Mark, walked through the door, he looked tired but happy to be home. He greeted me with a kiss on the cheek and a smile that made my heart swell. "Everything smells amazing," he said as he leaned over to inspect the table setting. "Just wait until you taste it," I replied, trying to match his enthusiasm. We chatted lightly about our day while I poured us each a glass of white wine. The sound of laughter from outside reminded me how alive our small town felt during this season. But as we settled into our evening routine, Mark's phone buzzed insistently on the counter. He glanced at it briefly before his expression shifted. "I have to take this," he said apologetically before answering the call. His tone turned serious as he stepped outside onto the porch, leaving me alone in our cozy kitchen. I busied myself with last-minute preparations but felt an unsettling knot in my stomach as I listened to Mark's voice fade into hushed tones outside. The minutes stretched on longer than I expected. Every tick of the clock echoed louder in my ears until it became unbearable. Jake arrived shortly after Mark stepped out, his presence filling the room with an energy that was hard to ignore. He looked different than I remembered, more confident and charming than ever. As we exchanged pleasantries, I couldn't help but notice how his eyes sparkled with mischief and warmth. "Where's Mark?" Jake asked casually as he took off his coat and hung it by the door. "He got an emergency call," I replied, trying to keep my tone light despite feeling a strange tension building within me. Jake nodded thoughtfully and moved closer to me as we began arranging appetizers on a platter together. Our hands brushed against each other more than once, sending an unexpected jolt through me each time. It was disconcerting how easy it felt to laugh at his jokes and share stories about family gatherings past. Mark remained outside for what seemed like an eternity while Jake and I continued preparing for dinner. As we stood side by side at the counter slicing vegetables, something shifted in the air between us, a current of unspoken connection that made my heart race unexpectedly. I caught Jake looking at me differently then, his gaze lingering just a moment too long before he turned away to grab another plate from the cupboard. The tension hung thick around us like fog rolling in off Lake Minnetonka during those late autumn evenings when everything feels muted yet charged with possibility. Finally, Mark returned inside just as dinner was ready to be served, a bit frazzled but smiling nonetheless. He didn't seem aware of anything unusual between Jake and me. Perhaps it was just my imagination running wild, fueled by nerves or something deeper lying beneath our surface interactions. Dinner commenced pleasantly enough. We shared stories about past family gatherings while enjoying roasted chicken paired perfectly with buttery mashed potatoes, a recipe handed down from my mother-in-law that never failed to impress anyone who tasted it. But even amidst laughter and shared memories around that table adorned with autumn decor, the unease lingered like a shadow just out of sight waiting for its moment to reveal itself fully. As dessert approached, a pumpkin pie drizzled in caramel sauce, I caught Jake's eye again across the table during one particularly humorous story Mark told about his childhood antics growing up here in Minnesota. There was something electric about that moment, an understanding passed between us without words spoken aloud, a recognition of feelings we both dared not acknowledge openly yet couldn't deny existed either way. The evening unfolded uneasily after dessert. Conversation flowed but never quite reached its previous heights again. An undercurrent simmered beneath every word exchanged, now tinged with unacknowledged desire mixed heavily with guilt, creeping into my thoughts uninvitedly like fog rolling over familiar ground, obscuring what lay ahead clearly enough for me or anyone else involved here tonight. Then came another interruption. Mark's phone buzzed again, cutting through whatever fragile peace had settled among us earlier, disrupting our fragile equilibrium once more. This time, though, it felt different somehow. It felt heavier, laden down by implications far beyond mere inconvenience or timing issues alone. This time there would be no escaping what lay ahead, nor could any amount of preparation shield us from its impending arrival upon us all soon enough, regardless how hard we tried otherwise. Tonight, together here now, gathered around this table, sharing food, laughter, love, memories. All intertwined intricately within these walls, built over years spent building lives together, filled with hope, dreams, promises made, kept, broken, renewed endlessly throughout time itself, despite everything else happening beyond these walls, too far away now, overshadowing everything else surrounding us tonight, inevitably leading toward unknown futures awaiting each one present here, gathered tonight around this table, sharing food, laughter, love, memories. All intertwined intricately within these walls, built over years spent building lives together, filled with hope, dreams, promises made, kept, broken, renewed endlessly throughout time itself, despite everything else happening beyond these walls, too far away now, overshadowing everything else surrounding us tonight, inevitably leading toward unknown futures awaiting each one present here, gathered tonight around this table, sharing food, laughter, love, memories. All intertwined intricately within these walls, built over years spent building lives together, filled with hope, dreams, promises made, kept, broken, renewed endlessly throughout time itself, despite everything else happening beyond these walls, too far away now, overshadowing everything else surrounding us tonight, inevitably leading toward unknown futures awaiting each one present here, gathered tonight around this table, sharing food, laughter, love, memories. All intertwined intricately within these walls, built over years spent building lives together, filled with hope, dreams, promises made, kept, broken, renewed endlessly throughout time itself, despite everything else happening beyond these walls, too far away now, overshadowing everything else surrounding us tonight, inevitably leading toward unknown futures awaiting each one present here, gathered tonight around this table, sharing food, laughter, love, memories. All intertwined intricately within these walls, built over years spent building lives together, filled with hope, dreams, promises made, kept, broken, renewed endlessly throughout time itself, despite everything else happening beyond these walls, too far away now, overshadowing everything else surrounding us tonight, inevitably leading toward unknown futures awaiting each one present here, gathered tonight around this table, sharing food, laughter, love, memories. All intertwined intricately within these walls, built over years spent building lives together, filled with hope, dreams, promises made, kept, broken, renewed endlessly throughout time itself, despite everything else happening beyond these walls, too far away now, overshadowing everything else surrounding us tonight, inevitably leading toward unknown futures awaiting each one present here, gathered tonight around this table, sharing food, laughter, love, memories. All intertwined intricately within these walls, built over years spent building lives together, filled with hope, dreams, promises made, kept, broken, renewed endlessly throughout time itself, despite everything else happening beyond these walls, too far away now, overshadowing everything else surrounding us tonight, inevitably leading toward unknown futures awaiting each one present here, gathered tonight around this table, sharing food, laughter, love, memories. All intertwined intricately within these walls, built over years spent building lives together, filled with hope, dreams, promises made, kept, broken, renewed endlessly throughout time itself, despite everything else happening beyond these walls, too far away now, overshadowing everything else surrounding us tonight, inevitably leading toward unknown futures awaiting each one present here, gathered tonight around this table, sharing food, laughter, love, memories. All intertwined intricately within these walls, built over years spent building lives together, filled with hope, dreams, promises made, kept, broken, renewed endlessly throughout time itself, despite everything else happening beyond these walls, too far away now, overshadowing everything else surrounding us tonight, inevitably leading toward unknown futures awaiting each one present here, gathered tonight around this table, sharing food, laughter, love, memories. all intertwined intricately within these walls built over years spent building lives together filled with hope, dreams, promises made, kept, broken, renewed endlessly throughout time itself despite everything else happening beyond. The laughter around the table echoed softly, but it felt like a distant hum as I focused on the man sitting across from me. Jake, my husband's brother, had always been charming, but tonight he seemed to radiate an energy that pulled me in. Each laugh shared felt like a thread weaving us closer together, even though the absence of my husband loomed heavily in the air. I glanced at the empty chair where he should have been, the unease tightening my chest. His emergency call had come just as dinner was being served, pulling him away from this gathering of family that was supposed to be filled with warmth and connection. Instead, it felt incomplete. My heart sank with each tick of the clock, wondering how long he would be gone and if he would return before the evening turned into something I didn't expect. "Emily, you're awfully quiet tonight," Jake remarked, breaking through my thoughts. His voice was smooth and inviting, drawing my gaze back to him. "Oh, just lost in thought," I replied lightly, attempting to mask the turmoil brewing within me. "It's a lovely dinner." He smiled knowingly, a glimmer of mischief in his eyes. "You always were good at pretending." The comment lingered between us like an unspoken challenge. I felt my cheeks flush slightly under his gaze. As conversation flowed around us, family stories and shared memories, I found myself laughing more than usual at Jake's jokes. His humor was infectious, and soon enough I was leaning closer to hear his whispered anecdotes over the din of our relatives' chatter. A part of me knew this was dangerous territory, another part craved the connection that had blossomed unexpectedly between us. At one point during dinner, our hands brushed against each other as we reached for a serving dish simultaneously. The touch lingered longer than necessary, it sent an electric jolt through me that I couldn't ignore. My heart raced as I looked into his eyes, those familiar yet foreign eyes that seemed to hold secrets just beneath the surface. "Isn't it strange?" Jake mused quietly after we both withdrew our hands awkwardly. "How sometimes we feel more connected to those we shouldn't." I swallowed hard at his words, feeling a rush of heat rise up my neck. The implication hung heavily in the air between us, it was a dangerous game we were playing. "I suppose," I replied cautiously, trying to keep my tone light while battling the storm inside me. The evening wore on with laughter and shared stories punctuating moments of silence filled with tension. Each time our eyes met across the table or our knees brushed against one another under it, I could feel an invisible thread binding us tighter together, a bond forged in secrecy and desire. As dessert arrived, a rich chocolate cake that everyone seemed eager to devour, I felt Jake's knee press against mine beneath the table once more. This time there was no retreating. Instead, it became a silent acknowledgement of what was unfolding between us. "Emily," he whispered softly when everyone else's attention turned momentarily elsewhere. "Can we talk? Just for a moment?" My heart raced as I nodded almost imperceptibly, curiosity mixed with dread coursed through me as I followed him into the dimly lit hallway just outside the dining room. "What is it?" I asked when we reached a secluded corner away from prying eyes. He stepped closer, lowering his voice further as if afraid someone might overhear him confessing something forbidden. "I can't shake this feeling between us. It's intense." I could barely breathe as he closed the distance between us even more until there was barely any space left to separate us. My mind screamed warnings while my body betrayed me with an undeniable pull toward him. "I shouldn't be feeling this way," I murmured helplessly. "But you do," he countered gently yet firmly as he tilted his head slightly closer to mine. And then it happened, an impulsive moment fueled by longing and confusion led our lips together in an unexpected kiss that silenced everything around us for just that fleeting second. We kissed. Time stood still as emotions swirled within me like a tempest, guilt mingling with exhilaration in equal measure, as if every choice leading up to this moment collided in one decisive act of rebellion against everything I held dear. Suddenly aware of what we had done, the line irrevocably crossed, I pulled away sharply and pressed a hand against my mouth as if trying to erase what had just transpired. What did we just do? My voice trembled with disbelief and fear. Reality crashed back down upon me like icy water poured over burning flames. Jake looked equally startled but held onto my gaze fiercely. I don't know. But it felt right. His words sent shivers down my spine, right? How could anything about this feel right? My heart pounded painfully in my chest as guilt washed over me like waves crashing against jagged rocks on a stormy shore. We need to go back, I insisted urgently as panic set in deep within me. How could we face everyone after what had just happened? Emily, he reached for me again but hesitated before touching my arm gently instead, a gesture meant for comfort yet only deepened my turmoil further still. No. The word burst from my lips sharper than intended as I stepped back instinctively. Every fiber of loyalty screamed at me not to fall deeper into this abyss alongside him. With regret etched on his face, Jake nodded slowly but didn't move toward rejoining our family immediately. Instead we stood there caught between two worlds. The one filled with familial love and loyalty waiting beyond those walls versus this dangerous allure pulling us deeper into shadows where secrets thrived unchecked by consequence or judgment from others who loved us dearly yet remained oblivious about everything. Unfolding behind closed doors tonight, the truth hidden beneath layers upon layers built over years spent together bound by promises made kept broken renewed endlessly throughout time itself despite everything else happening beyond these walls too far away now overshadowing everything else surrounding us tonight inevitably leading toward unknown futures awaiting each one present here gathered tonight around this table sharing food laughter love memories, all intertwined intricately within these walls built over years spent building lives together filled with hope dreams. Promises made kept broken renewed endlessly throughout time itself despite everything else happening beyond these walls too far away now overshadowing everything else surrounding us tonight inevitably leading toward unknown futures awaiting each one present here gathered tonight around this table sharing food laughter love memories, all intertwined intricately within these walls built over years spent building lives together filled with hope dreams promises made kept broken renewed endlessly throughout time itself despite everything else happening beyond. In that moment alone together amidst swirling chaos surrounding our choices made unwittingly, it became clear. Nothing would ever be simple again after crossing such lines drawn carefully over years spent nurturing bonds formed out of love loyalty trust shattered now forever altered by fleeting moments driven by desire unbridled unchecked pulling strings taut until they snapped leaving only fragments behind scattered across paths chosen unwisely leading toward uncertain futures awaiting all. Involved caught unaware swept along currents strong enough changed destinies forevermore leaving scars indelibly marked upon hearts souls alike unable escape consequences arising inevitably from choices made under pressure hidden beneath layers built carefully. Over time waiting patiently until they unraveled completely revealing truths too painful confront head-on forcing reckoning come sooner rather than later whether ready willing or not. The laughter from the dining room echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of what I had just done. My heart raced as I stood there, grappling with the weight of my choices. The warmth of the moment lingered, yet it was overshadowed by an icy grip of guilt that tightened around my chest. I glanced at my brother-in-law, his eyes still reflecting a spark of something dangerous and alluring. I could almost hear the clock ticking, each second amplifying the tension that filled the air between us. What had started as innocent laughter over shared memories had spiraled into something I couldn't comprehend. My husband's absence loomed like a shadow over our interaction, and every heartbeat echoed his trust in me, trust one had just shattered. Emily, he whispered, breaking the silence that enveloped us. His voice was low, almost hesitant, but it carried an urgency that sent shivers down my spine. This isn't right. I nodded slowly, feeling the heat rise to my cheeks. I know. The admission tasted bitter on my tongue as I fought against the rising tide of emotions threatening to pull me under. What do we do now? He asked, his gaze intense and searching. The question hung heavy in the air, suffocating any remnants of rational thought. I thought about my husband, his kindness, his unwavering support over the years, and felt a wave of nausea wash over me. How could I even consider continuing this? Yet here we were, standing on the precipice of something irrevocable. We can't, my voice faltered as I struggled to articulate what I felt inside. It was a storm brewing, a mix of desire and guilt battling for dominance within me. We shouldn't have crossed this line. His expression softened, a flicker of understanding passing between us. But it happened, he replied gently, stepping closer as if drawn by an invisible force. What does that mean for us? In that moment, clarity eluded me like smoke slipping through fingers. The delicious thrill mingled with fear twisted my stomach into knots. How had we allowed ourselves to drift into this tangled web? Before I could respond, he reached out and brushed his fingers against mine, a simple gesture that sent another surge of electricity through me. Our eyes locked once more, and suddenly everything else faded away, the dinner party fading into distant noise as our breaths synchronized in shared trepidation. And then it happened, our lips met in a tentative exploration that ignited something deep within me. A rush of warmth flooded through my body as if every nerve ending had come alive at once, yet beneath that thrill lay an undercurrent of dread gnawing at me. "Emily," he murmured against my lips before pulling back slightly to gauge my reaction. "Stop," I breathed out urgently, panic rising within me like bile. "We can't do this." But even as those words escaped my mouth, part of me yearned for more connection, more understanding, something outside the confines of loyalty that felt suffocating right now. "I don't want to hurt you," he said softly, searching my face for any sign that would give him clarity amidst this chaos we found ourselves in. "I know," I replied shakily but firmly as reality crashed back around us like a wave breaking on rocky shores. "But think about Mark." The mention of his name hung heavily between us. It was like throwing cold water on flames licking at our feet while simultaneously igniting guilt anew within me. "I can't," he whispered finally after what felt like hours spent suspended in time together, a moment too precious yet too damaging to hold on to any longer than necessary. As if sensing our emotional standoff was reaching its peak intensity, the doors swung open abruptly behind us, revealing Mark standing there looking bewildered yet concerned. "What's going on?" His voice cut through the air like a knife slicing through tension thick enough to choke on. My heart dropped at seeing him there, his presence grounding me back into reality while simultaneously sending shockwaves through every fiber of my being, reminding me how precarious this situation truly was. "Nothing," I managed to say too quickly while stepping away from his brother instinctively, an instinct born from years spent trying not only to protect myself but also those closest around me from harm's reach, regardless how deeply entangled they may become along life's unpredictable path ahead, waiting patiently until they unraveled completely, revealing truths too painful confront head-on, forcing reckoning come sooner rather than later, whether ready, willing or not. Mark eyed both of us suspiciously before shaking his head slightly, dismissing whatever unease lingered there between siblings caught off guard by their own actions spiraling out control faster than either one could comprehend, fully grasping consequences arising inevitably from choices made under pressure, hidden beneath layers built carefully over time, waiting patiently until they unraveled completely, revealing truths too painful confront head-on, forcing reckoning come sooner rather than later, whether ready, willing or not. "Dinner is getting cold," he said finally with forced nonchalance before retreating back toward where family gathered, unaware anything amiss lurking beneath surface appearances, maintaining facade smiles shared across dining table filled with memories, laughter echoing throughout home once filled, warmth, love now tainted by shadows creeping ever closer, threatening unravel everything built painstakingly, years together spent nurturing bonds formed out, trust, loyalty shattered, now forever altered by fleeting moments, driven desire unbridled, unchecked, pulling strings taut until they snapped, leaving only fragments behind, scattered across paths chosen unwisely, leading toward uncertain futures awaiting all involved, caught unaware, swept along currents strong enough change destinies forevermore leaving scars indelibly marked upon hearts, souls alike unable escape consequences arising inevitably from choices made under pressure, hidden beneath layers built carefully over time, waiting patiently until they unraveled, completely revealing truths too painful confront head-on, forcing reckoning come sooner rather than later, whether ready, willing or not. With every ounce of willpower left inside me, I inhaled deeply, steadying myself before following after Mark, trying desperately regain composure, lost somewhere along way, finding footing again amidst chaos swirling around, choices made unwittingly intertwining, lives forever changed by single night spent together. Alone, caught up, whirlwind emotions spiraling beyond control, leaving scars indelibly marked upon hearts, souls alike unable escape consequences arising inevitably from choices made under pressure, hidden beneath layers built carefully over time, waiting patiently until they unraveled, completely revealing truths too painful confront head-on, forcing reckoning come sooner rather than later, whether ready, willing or not. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting soft shadows across the room. I lay there, wrapped in a cocoon of warmth, yet every ray felt like a reminder of the choices I had made. Mark's presence beside me was both comforting and suffocating. The reality of our night together loomed heavy in the air, a tangible weight pressing down on my chest. As I shifted slightly, trying to find a comfortable position, I caught sight of his peaceful expression. He looked so serene, completely unaware of the turmoil swirling inside me. My heart raced as I recalled the moments we had shared, the laughter, the whispered secrets, and finally, that impulsive decision that led us to this point. We spent the night together, and now I was trapped between guilt and desire. I slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake him. My mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. How would I face my husband? The man who trusted me implicitly? The thought sent a wave of nausea through me. As I padded softly to the kitchen, the familiar scent of coffee brewing filled the air, a small comfort in an otherwise chaotic morning. I poured myself a cup and leaned against the counter, staring out at the backyard where memories of family gatherings played like old films in my mind. The laughter of children echoed faintly as they chased each other around while adults mingled over barbecues and drinks. Those were simpler times when my biggest worry was whether or not I had enough napkins for dinner. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the table, pulling me from my reverie. It was a message from my husband, heading home soon. Can't wait to see you. A knot tightened in my stomach as I read his words, so innocent yet so loaded with unspoken implications. What would he think if he knew? If he could see beyond my facade? Would he still look at me with love, or would betrayal cloud his eyes? The thought gripped me with fear. It felt like standing on the edge of a precipice with no way back. I took another sip of coffee to steady myself when Mark appeared behind me, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Morning," he said softly, his voice still thick with slumber. "Morning," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. He stepped closer and placed a hand on my shoulder, an innocent gesture that sent shivers down my spine. Memories flooded back, our laughter last night mingled with whispers under dim lights. My heart raced again as guilt washed over me like icy water. "Did you sleep well?" he asked casually, as if nothing had changed between us. "Yeah," I managed to say while avoiding his gaze. "You?" "Like a baby," he replied with a grin that made it hard for me to breathe. I turned away quickly, needing space to gather my thoughts before facing what lay ahead. "I should get breakfast ready," I said, and moved toward the fridge. As I rummaged through its contents for eggs and bacon, simple staples that felt heavy now, I could feel Mark watching me intently. His presence was both comforting and unsettling. It reminded me how easy it had been to slip into this affair without considering consequences. "Emily?" His voice broke through my thoughts again. I turned slowly to face him. There was something in his eyes, an intensity that made my heart race for reasons beyond mere attraction. "We need to talk about last night." The words hung between us like an unwelcome guest at dinner, a reminder that our lives had irrevocably changed overnight. My pulse quickened as dread settled in. What if this conversation unraveled everything? I know, I said finally, keeping my tone steady despite the chaos inside me. Mark stepped closer again but paused before reaching out for me. His hesitation caught me off guard. I didn't mean for things to go this far. Neither did I admitted softly, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. But they did, he continued gently but firmly. What does this mean for us? That question struck deep within, a dagger twisting painfully in my gut as reality crashed down around us both like waves eroding sandcastles built too close to shore. There were no easy answers here, only messy emotions tangled in desires long buried beneath layers of loyalty and commitment. Just then, another message pinged on my phone, this time from my husband, almost home. A rush of panic surged through me. We didn't have much time left before everything spiraled out of control completely. I can't do this anymore, I blurted out unexpectedly, a desperate plea escaping before reason could catch up with emotion's reckless abandon. Mark's eyes widened slightly as if bracing himself against an impending storm, but what came next surprised even him. What do you mean? I mean, we can't keep pretending nothing happened. My voice trembled slightly as fear clawed its way back into consciousness alongside shame weighing heavily upon every syllable spoken aloud now hanging thickly between us like fog rolling over hills obscuring view ahead entirely obscured by uncertainty looming just outside reach grasping desperately at fragile hearts already bruised bruised by choices made carelessly without thought regard consequences lingering always just beneath surface waiting patiently until revealed starkly. Illuminated under harsh light daybreak forcing reckoning come sooner rather than later whether ready willing or not. Before Mark could respond further, a sound echoed from outside breaking tension building steadily within walls closing tighter around us both. It was unmistakable. Tires crunching gravel driveway announcing arrival impending arrival homecoming heralding end momentary escape reality crashing back down upon shoulders burdened already too heavily by secrets kept too long hidden away from prying eyes seeking solace found only fleetingly amidst chaos created by choices made impulsively without regard. Consequences unforeseen unexpected now looming large threatening unravel bonds carefully constructed over years time spent together building life woven intricately together now fraying threads pulled taut straining against pressure exerted by truth revealed. Finally laid bare exposed raw vulnerability laid open wide inviting scrutiny judgment cast harshly across fragile fabric lives intertwined once seamlessly now threatened by fractures emerging slowly yet surely threatening dissolve connection. Forged painstakingly over years spent nurturing love built upon trust shattered irrevocably fractured pieces scattered everywhere unable gathered up again lost forever amidst ruins left behind echoes past haunting present future uncertain. Emily. Mark's voice broke through once more, but urgency tinged it now laced with desperation mingling confusion swirling around two souls caught within storm raging outside beyond control yet somehow still tethered together despite everything threatening pull apart unravel completely leaving nothing but emptiness behind remnants scattered across landscape once vibrant filled laughter joy now silent desolate echoes memories fading slowly into distance lost forever. I have to go. I whispered finally feeling tears spill forth unbidden down cheeks hot against coolness morning air wrapping around heart racing wildly within chest echoing rhythm pounding louder drowning out everything else until silence fell abruptly leaving only quiet. Aftermath lingering heavy silence enveloping two souls standing frozen together facing inevitable conclusion drawn closer each passing second ticking away precious moments slipping through fingers grasping desperately. Hold on to something anything before darkness descended fully engulfing all light hope dwindling fading away leaving nothing but shadows behind cast long across landscape forever altered irrevocably changed. The sound of the door creaking open pulled me from the depths of my turmoil. My heart raced as I turned to see my husband, Mark, stepping into the house. The warmth of his presence collided with the coldness of my actions. I had expected him to be gone longer. And now he stood there, oblivious to the storm brewing within me. Hey, Em, he greeted, his voice light, carrying a hint of fatigue from his unexpected call. Sorry for dropping in so suddenly. How was dinner? I forced a smile, nodding slightly even as guilt twisted in my gut. It was fine, I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. The weight of secrets pressed heavily on my chest, each breath a reminder of what had transpired just hours before. He moved further into the room, hanging his jacket on the back of a chair. I missed you, he said simply, glancing around as if taking inventory of our home. Everything okay? I hesitated, searching for words that could mask the truth. Just tired, I replied finally. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. Mark's brow furrowed slightly as he studied me. You sure? You look a little pale. His concern was genuine, and it cut deeper than I expected. I'm fine, I insisted too quickly, forcing myself to maintain eye contact despite the urge to look away. My mind flickered back to moments shared with his brother, intimate whispers and stolen touches that felt both thrilling and terrifying. All right, Mark said slowly, accepting my answer but not entirely convinced. He moved toward the kitchen and began pouring himself a glass of water. I watched him from where I stood, grappling with an overwhelming sense of impending doom. As he drank, I felt an unsettling silence settle between us, a chasm created by unspoken words and hidden truths. It was as if we were standing on opposite sides of a vast divide that threatened to swallow us whole. Did you talk to your mom? He asked suddenly, breaking the silence. I shook my head quickly, not wanting to delve into family matters that could lead back to uncomfortable territory involving his brother. Not yet. She called earlier while I was out, Mark continued casually as he wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. She sounded worried about something. His tone shifted slightly, there was an underlying tension in his words that made me uneasy. What do you mean? I asked cautiously. Just something about how she feels like there's been distance between us lately. He paused for a moment before adding quietly, between you and me. My heart sank at his words, they struck like arrows aimed directly at my conscience. Had she sensed something? Did she know about what had happened? The thought made it hard to breathe. I don't know what she means, I replied too quickly again, trying desperately to sound convincing while feeling like a fraud beneath his gaze. Mark shrugged but didn't press further. Instead, he turned toward the living room where remnants of our family dinner still lingered. The half-eaten pie on the table served as a reminder of happier moments now overshadowed by guilt. As he walked away from me, I felt an overwhelming urge to reach out, to confess everything swirling inside me, but fear held me back like chains binding my feet to the ground. His voice called from across the room as he picked up a napkin crumpled on the table. Are you sure everything's okay? I nodded again but felt tears welling up in response to his gentle inquiry, tears born from guilt and shame rather than sadness alone. I just want us to be good together, Mark said softly after a moment's pause. His sincerity wrapped around me like a warm blanket even as it stung sharply against my conscience. We are good, I replied quickly again but with less conviction this time. It felt more like a desperate plea than an affirmation of truth. He studied me closely once more before shaking his head slightly in disbelief before turning away again, leaving behind an atmosphere thick with unaddressed emotions hanging heavy in our home like fog obscuring familiar landscapes. While Mark settled onto our couch with some paperwork sprawled across his lap, a mundane distraction, I found myself lost in thought about what had transpired only hours before. Laughter shared over dinner with family fading into stolen moments filled with passion that shouldn't have existed between us at all. The phone rang unexpectedly then, a sharp jolt cutting through my reverie, and instinctively reached for it without thinking twice about who might be calling at this hour. Emily? It was Mark's mother on the other end, her voice tinged with worry yet laced with familiarity that made answering feel almost comforting despite everything else brewing beneath surface tensions surrounding our lives lately. Yes? I replied cautiously while stealing glances toward Mark, who remained engrossed in whatever document lay before him, unaware that secrets were unfolding just beyond reach, not knowing how close we were teetering toward disaster without realizing it ourselves yet again. "I just wanted to check in on you both," she said gently after exchanging pleasantries briefly, her tone shifting subtly now, as though sensing something deeper lurked behind our facade, too easily maintained thus far through careful navigation among family dynamics fraught with complexity over years spent together navigating life's ups downs a long way. "Oh." My heart raced again. Her concern felt burdensome, now pressing down harder than ever under weight borne by choices made recently, spiraling out control, threatening unravel everything we'd built together over time spent intertwined through love, laughter, tears shared a long way. "I've noticed some distance lately between all three of us," she continued softly, her tone turning serious yet maternal all at once, "and wanted you both know that if there's anything troubling either one or both, please don't hesitate, reach out." The sincerity behind her words struck deep within me. Perhaps she sensed more than mere distance. It felt almost prophetic, foreshadowing events yet unfold, leaving trails behind them leading nowhere good unless addressed soonest possible. "I promise we're okay," I managed finally, though uncertainty lingered heavy upon tongue, knowing full well how fragile truth remained hidden beneath layers built around protecting hearts involved, tangled situations spiraling beyond control, entirely lying just outside grasp, waiting patiently for reckoning come calling sooner rather than later, demanding answers long overdue. After hanging up feeling drained, emotionally raw, exposed beneath weighty truths left unsaid, lingering heavy air charged between us. The tension palpable enough cut through silence surrounding us, suffocating every attempt. Conversation turned awkwardly strained under pressure until finally Mark broke it himself, looking up suddenly, catching eyes, mine searching desperately, seeking reassurance, perhaps unaware danger looming closer, threatening unravel bonds holding tightly together against odds stacked high against us. "You okay?" he asked again, concern etched deeply upon features softened by love still lingering despite everything else threatening. Pull apart, slowly unravel, completely leaving nothing behind but echoes, memories fading slowly into distance, lost forever. The evening stretched on, filled with strained laughter and polite conversation. I sat at the table, my heart racing, thoughts swirling like a storm inside me. Mark's eyes were still searching mine, concern etched into his features, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. The weight of my choices hung heavily between us, suffocating any semblance of normalcy. "I'm fine," I managed to say, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. The truth was far from fine. It was tangled in guilt and desire, a dangerous cocktail that threatened to spill over at any moment. I glanced around the table, where family members chatted amiably, blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. As the night progressed, my mind drifted back to the moments shared with Jake, the stolen glances, the innocent touches that lingered too long. Each memory felt like a dagger twisting in my heart. I had crossed an invisible line that night during dinner, now I was left grappling with its consequences. "Are you sure?" Mark pressed again, his voice low but filled with genuine concern. "You seem distant." "I'm just tired," I replied too quickly. My hands fidgeted with the napkin on my lap as I tried to suppress the flood of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. The door creaked open behind me and Jake stepped into the room. His presence sent a jolt through me, a mix of panic and longing that made it hard to breathe. He caught my eye for just a moment before turning to engage in conversation with other family members. My heart raced. How could we pretend everything was normal? As if sensing my turmoil, Jake approached me after a few minutes, his expression serious yet soft. "Can we talk?" he whispered so only I could hear. I hesitated but nodded slightly, following him into a quieter corner of the house where shadows danced along the walls. "What is it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "I can't stop thinking about what happened." His eyes searched mine for understanding, an understanding that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Neither can I admitted reluctantly. Conflicting emotions swirled within me as he took another step forward, closing the distance between us. The air crackled with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. "You know this can't happen again," I said firmly, even as part of me desperately wanted to surrender to those feelings once more. "Why not? We have something real," he urged softly. "I can't just pretend it didn't happen." His words hung in the air like an uninvited guest at our gathering. My heart raced as conflicting thoughts battled within me, loyalty to Mark versus this undeniable connection with Jake that had ignited during our brief moments together. "Jake," I started but faltered as he reached out and brushed his fingers against my arm, a simple touch that sent shivers down my spine. "We kissed," he reminded me gently, his gaze unwavering. "I know," I whispered back, feeling heat rise in my cheeks as memories flooded back unbidden. The thrill mixed with guilt was suffocating now more than ever. Before I could gather my thoughts or compose myself further, footsteps echoed down the hallway behind us. Mark's voice called out searchingly for Jake. "We need to go back," I urged urgently, stepping away from him as if breaking free from an invisible bond holding us together against all reason. "Wait," he said quickly but softly enough not to draw attention from anyone else nearby. "I need you to understand, I don't want this to end." The desperation in his tone tugged at something deep within me, a longing for connection and intimacy that had been absent for far too long in my marriage with Mark. But reality crashed down like a heavy wave. This could never work without consequences rippling through our lives forevermore. "I can't do this," I finally said firmly, even as every fiber of my being wanted otherwise. Every heartbeat echoed with what could have been but never would be now, not without devastating repercussions looming ahead like storm clouds readying themselves for rain. As we rejoined the others at dinner, a cacophony of laughter and cheerful chatter, I felt disconnected from it all, a mere spectator watching life unfold while drowning beneath waves of guilt and regret that threatened to engulf me entirely if left unchecked any longer. Mark caught my eye again across the table. An unspoken question lingered there: was everything truly all right? It took everything within me not to break down under his gaze, instead forcing another smile onto lips trembling ever so slightly, betraying inner turmoil raging just beneath surface calmness maintained through sheer willpower alone. Dinner came to an end eventually. Plates cleared away, leaving only remnants behind as silence fell over family gathered around table once more, each member oblivious, still unaware how close we teetered toward disaster looming ever closer, threatening unravel bonds holding tightly together against odds stacked high against us all. "Emily?" Mark's voice cut through silence, suddenly drawing attention back toward him again. His brow furrowed, slightly concern evident, etched deeply upon features softened by love still lingering despite everything else threatening. Pull apart, slowly unravel, completely leaving nothing behind but echoes, memories fading slowly into distance, lost forever. "I think we should talk," he said, finally breaking tension hanging thickly around us like fog refusing lift until confronted head-on by light shining brightly through darkness surrounding each one present here tonight. My heart raced again. Not out fear but anticipation mixed dread, knowing what lay ahead would change everything forevermore regardless outcome chosen ultimately. The evening grew darker outside while shadows lengthened inside, hearts burdened, heavy secrets held close, hidden deep beneath layers carefully constructed over years spent building lives together. Yet now those very foundations trembled precariously under weight truth sought after desperately by all involved. And so began unraveling threads binding tightly woven tapestry, life shared amongst family who loved fiercely yet remained blissfully unaware, impending storm brewing just beyond horizon, waiting patiently strike when least expected, leaving devastation in wake, regardless intentions set forth beforehand. The game continued, laughter echoing through the living room as the family settled into their familiar routine. I sat on the edge of the couch, a smile painted across my face, but inside, I was a storm of anxiety. My husband's absence lingered like a dark cloud overhead, and every chuckle from the others felt like a reminder of the fracture in our lives. "Emily, your turn," my sister-in-law called out, her eyes sparkling with delight. I forced myself to focus on the board game in front of us, but my mind was elsewhere. The weight of my brother-in-law's gaze from across the room still clung to me like a ghost. "Right," I replied, trying to sound enthusiastic as I rolled the dice. The numbers landed with a soft thud against the table, but my heart raced with thoughts of what had transpired just days before. How could I have let it go so far? Each roll felt like another step away from who I thought I was, a devoted wife and mother. As I moved my piece forward, glancing at my brother-in-law sitting next to me, his expression was unreadable. Did he feel guilt too? Or had he compartmentalized this moment as just another fleeting encounter? The memory of our shared secret loomed large between us, an unspoken bond that neither of us could ignore. "Are you okay?" he whispered under his breath, leaning closer so that only I could hear him. My heart skipped at his proximity. Even in this crowded room filled with laughter and warmth, we were isolated in our own world. "I'm fine," I murmured back, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Just thinking." He nodded slowly but didn't pull away. Instead, his gaze held mine for just a second longer than necessary before returning to the game. It was as if we were both aware that our lives had shifted irreparably, yet were trapped in this moment pretending everything was normal. The game progressed, with each turn revealing more about our family dynamics than any of us anticipated. As we played trivia questions about each other's lives, what color my husband's childhood bedroom had been or where we first met, I felt layers peeling away from our shared history. When it came time for my husband's turn to answer a question about me, one that he should have known easily, he faltered. Yellow," he guessed hesitantly regarding my favorite color. "Close," I replied softly. "But it's blue." A silence fell over the group as they exchanged glances. It felt heavy with unspoken words and unresolved issues. My husband shrugged it off with an awkward laugh as if dismissing something trivial, while inside I felt an ache deepen within me. "Let's move on," someone suggested cheerily, and everyone chuckled nervously at the tension hanging in the air like thick fog. I watched my brother-in-law shift uncomfortably in his seat as if sensing how fragile everything had become. His phone buzzed on the table beside him, a lifeline to reality, and he picked it up quickly before glancing at me again with an unreadable expression. "Excuse me," he said quietly before stepping outside onto the porch. I could feel a pull towards him even though every instinct screamed against it. The urge to follow him was overwhelming. Perhaps there might be clarity waiting for us outside amidst the cool evening air, a chance to confront what we had done or even find solace together amid chaos. But then guilt washed over me anew. How could I leave my husband and family behind? They deserved better than this tangled mess born out of selfish desires. As minutes passed without him returning inside, unease settled heavily on my chest like a weight too great to bear alone. The laughter continued around me but felt distant now, like echoes from another life where happiness hadn't been tainted by betrayal. Finally, unable to resist any longer, I stood up and made my way toward the door leading outside into darkness illuminated only by scattered stars above twinkling brightly against an indigo sky, promising secrets untold yet burdensome truths remained hidden beneath their surface. Stepping onto the porch revealed him leaning against the railing lost in thought. His silhouette framed by moonlight made him appear both vulnerable and alluring all at once. A dangerous combination that sent shivers down my spine despite knowing better than to venture too close again. "Hey," he said softly without looking up immediately when hearing footsteps approaching behind him. "Hey," I replied cautiously while crossing arms tightly around myself, feeling exposed under scrutiny even though no one else was present here except for us two, caught between choices made long ago and those yet unmade lingering ominously ahead, waiting patiently loom larger than life itself, threatening to engulf everything around us whole if left unchecked. "What are you thinking?" he finally asked after moments stretched thin between us, filled only by sounds of crickets chirping nearby, their songs hauntingly beautiful yet reminding me how far removed from reality we truly were, standing here together alone amidst shadows cast long ago. "I don't know," came out barely above a whisper, escaping lips trembling slightly, betraying inner turmoil raging beneath surface calm facade worn like armor, shielding heart from further damage inflicted by choices made recklessly without foresight or consideration. Consequences looming ahead, waiting patiently, strike when least expected, leaving devastation behind regardless intentions set forth beforehand. His eyes finally met mine fully, now searching for something deeper hidden within them, perhaps hoping against hope find answers needed desperately before darkness consumed all light, left illuminating path forward ahead, uncertain, fraught with danger lurking just beyond horizon, waiting patiently, strike when least expected, leaving devastation behind regardless intentions set forth beforehand. "We can't keep pretending this didn't happen," he stated matter-of-factly, breaking silence hanging heavy between us, suffocating any chance reconciliation might still exist somewhere deep down, buried beneath layers, guilt, shame, anger, regret swirling together, forming tempestuous storm threatening consume everything whole if left unchecked. "I know," came out barely audible, voice cracking slightly under pressure, weighing down heavily upon shoulders burdened, carrying secrets too great bear alone anymore, afraid truth would shatter fragile peace remaining intact somehow despite cracks already visible beneath surface. Reality accepted reluctantly over years spent building lives together now threatened unravel completely unless addressed head-on soonest possible moment before spiraling further out, control entirely beyond reach, grasp anymore. Just then another unexpected sound broke through our conversation. A muffled cry echoed faintly somewhere nearby, piercing through veil uncertainty surrounding us both, reminding how fragile bonds truly were even among those closest loved ones, often unaware struggles faced daily hidden beneath surface, smiles worn bravely despite storms raging within, hearts burdened heavy, secrets held close hidden deep beneath layers carefully constructed over years spent building lives together. The muffled cry lingered in the air, a haunting reminder of the fragility we all carried within us. I glanced at my brother-in-law, his expression mirroring my own turmoil. The weight of our shared secret pressed down on us like a heavy fog, obscuring any path forward. I had come to this family dinner hoping to solidify bonds, yet here I was, entangled in a web of guilt and desire. "Emily," he said softly, breaking the silence that had enveloped us. "We can't keep doing this." His words felt like both a lifeline and a noose tightening around my neck. I nodded slowly, unsure of how to navigate the storm brewing inside me. The laughter from the dining room seemed distant now, replaced by an overwhelming sense of dread. What had we done? What would happen next? As if sensing our tension, my husband returned from his call, his face drawn and weary. He glanced between us, confusion flickering across his features before he forced a smile. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I replied too quickly, my voice betraying me with its quaver. "Just talking about old times." He nodded but didn't seem convinced. I could feel the walls closing in around me as I struggled to maintain composure. The truth loomed large between us, an uninvited guest at our family gathering. Dinner resumed with awkward chatter and forced smiles. My husband recounted stories from his childhood, while I picked at my food, every bite feeling like a betrayal to the man who had always stood by me. Meanwhile, my brother-in-law sat across from me, his eyes filled with unspoken words that threatened to spill over. "I can't do this," he whispered when our eyes met briefly. "You need to decide." Decide? The very notion sent shivers down my spine as I considered what lay ahead. My heart raced at the thought of confessing everything to my husband, of unraveling the life we had built together over decades. The evening wore on with laughter echoing through the house. It felt surreal against the backdrop of my internal chaos. As dessert was served, a homemade pie that had become a family tradition, I felt trapped in a moment that should have been joyous but instead tasted bittersweet. "Emily? You okay?" My husband's voice pulled me from my thoughts. I plastered on a smile that felt more like a mask than any genuine expression of joy. "Just tired," I said softly. My brother-in-law shifted in his seat beside me, his presence both comforting and alarming. He reached out subtly under the table and brushed his fingers against mine, a fleeting touch that ignited memories of our stolen moments together. The pie was delicious, everyone complimented it as they savored each bite while discussing plans for next week's town festival. Yet beneath their chatter lay an undercurrent of tension that only I seemed aware of. "I think we should go," my husband suggested after several minutes of small talk about local events and community gatherings. I blinked at him in surprise. Part of me wanted to flee this evening filled with pretense while another part longed for stability amidst chaos. "Already?" my brother-in-law asked innocently enough, but with an edge that made it clear he didn't want our time together to end just yet. "Yeah," my husband replied lightly but with finality that brooked no argument. As we gathered our things and said our goodbyes, dread settled heavily in my stomach like stones sinking into water, each one representing another secret hidden beneath layers upon layers of denial. Once outside under the stars twinkling overhead like distant promises waiting to be fulfilled, I felt exposed under their gaze, raw nerves laid bare beneath moonlight illuminating paths untraveled before now. "Emily," my husband began hesitantly once we reached our car parked nearby. "Are you sure you're all right?" I bit back tears threatening to spill over as guilt clawed at me relentlessly. How could I explain what was happening within? Instead, I offered him another hollow reassurance cloaked in false bravado, just tired from all the excitement. He nodded again but didn't press further as we climbed into the car. Silence enveloped us like an old friend neither one wanted around anymore yet couldn't bear to dismiss entirely either. The drive home felt longer than usual, every streetlight casting shadows across faces illuminated only briefly before plunging back into darkness again. A metaphor for secrets kept hidden away behind closed doors where nobody dared venture except those willing enough risk everything for fleeting moments shared away from prying eyes watching closely always ready judge harshly without knowing full story behind choices made. A long way. Upon arriving home finally after what felt like hours spent driving through winding roads lined thick trees whispering secrets among themselves unseen yet deeply understood somehow, my heart raced anew at thought possibility confronting truth head-on tonight rather than waiting until morning light broke through horizon once more illuminating paths ahead clearer than ever before. But just as we stepped inside our home-filled warmth familiar scents wafting through air reminding us life continued on despite turbulence lurking beneath surface. My phone buzzed unexpectedly breaking silence sharply pulling focus away from moment unfolding before us both. I glanced down instinctively feeling dread wash over me anew. An incoming message from an unknown number accompanied by an ominous sense foreboding creeping steadily closer wrapping around heart squeezing tighter until breath caught somewhere deep within throat choking back panic rising fast threatening overwhelm entirely. "What is it?" my husband asked eyeing phone curiously now curiosity piqued despite fatigue etched deeply across features worn thin by stress endured throughout day gone by already feeling heavy laden burdens carried silently alone too long without respite anywhere sight. "I don't know," came out barely above whisper trembling slightly against weight uncertainty pressing down hard suffocating resolve building up inside desperately searching answers long overdue finally seeking closure needed most desperately right now before spiraling further beyond reach. "Grasp anymore." And then came another buzz followed swiftly after sending shivers racing down spine cold chill spreading outward reaching fingertips trembling nervously clutching tightly onto device refusing let go even though every instinct urged otherwise urging caution instead. My heart pounded louder echoing rhythm matched only by growing apprehension mounting steadily rising higher threatening drown out rational thought entirely leaving nothing behind except raw emotions spilling forth uncontrollably once unleashed unable contain anymore. "Emily?" His voice broke through haze surrounding mind-clouded confusion swirling endlessly around endlessly seeking clarity amidst chaos swirling rapidly out control beyond grasp anymore. With shaking hands trembling still clutching tightly onto phone refusing let go despite fear gripping tightly around heart squeezing harder than ever before threatening suffocate entirely unless faced bravely head-on without hesitation whatsoever remaining steadfast. Even when darkness loomed ever closer, looming large overhead, casting shadows stretching far beyond reach, grasp lingering just outside, waiting patiently until moment arrived, finally revealed truth concealed hidden deep within layers carefully constructed over years spent building lives together. And then came another message, illuminating screen brightly, cutting through darkness surrounding everything else, fading quickly into background noise, fading slowly away, leaving only clarity behind, remaining steadfast, unwavering amidst turmoil raging deep inside, battling fiercely against odds stacked high against us both, fighting desperately, hold on to hope flickering dimly, still alive somewhere buried beneath rubble, created choices made a long way leading here tonight, standing poised ready confront whatever lay ahead without flinching even once, despite fear gnawing relentlessly away, holding tight onto resolve forged strong enough withstand anything thrown way regardless consequences, ultimately faced together side by side, united front unwavering. Courage shining brightly, illuminating paths ahead, guiding forward toward unknown horizons, beckoning, invitingly drawing closer, revealing truths waiting patiently hidden just beneath surface, yearning break free, finally liberated once more.